Hello, friends. Welcome to Coding Garden, and welcome to this interview with True Narla and Jordan Gensler. They're going to both be speaking at React Summit. Their talk is titled Should You Learn React in 2023? And React Summit is happening in Amsterdam as a hybrid day on June 2nd and fully remote on June 6th. You can visit cdg.sh/React Summit to learn more, and be sure to use that link so they know that I sent you. True Narla is a software engineer at Discord. She's True Narla on Twitter and Mewtrue here on Twitch. Her passion is to inspire and educate others about the world of tech. And Jordan Gensler is the front-end technical lead at Mysten Labs. And he's Vape Juice Jordan on Twitter, and he's passionate about Taco Bell and TypeScript. Welcome in, both of you. Glad to see you.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for being here. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, of course. This is super fun. It's nice to see the behind the scenes too of a Coding Garden stream. So
For sure. Yeah, we got started a little early to get all the scenes set up and everything.
yeah.
Awesome. So I guess I didn't ask you if I could do this first, but we're just going to do some icebreaker questions, if that's cool, to get to know both of you. So first question, and you can pick who goes first. Do you prefer tea or coffee?
Okay, I'll go first.
Okay.
I am more of a coffee person, but
Okay.
when I say coffee, it's like very milky coffee. So
Sure.
it's more milk than coffee. So honestly, probably neither. I'd rather just drink like water or diet soda. But if I had to pick coffee, then go ahead, Jordan.
Yeah, True definitely, she hates tea, that's for sure. But I would never describe her as liking coffee. She likes milk, and then, maybe there's some coffee flavor in there. But I'm a big coffee fan, drink a lot of black coffee. But trying to, I also love espresso drinks, but trying to wean off of it because I just don't want to drink like a gallon of milk a day. Like I'm a grown up. I shouldn't do that.
For sure. Do you have each other's Starbucks orders memorized?
Yeah, he gets a grande. Oh God, what is it? A white chocolate mocha with peppermint, if that's available.
Nice.
And then usually it's some latte. He tries just like the normal latte anywhere that we go, and then mine is always different.
Do you have hers memorized, Jordan?
I mean, I know a couple that she gets. It is very inconsistent though. I mean, I think it's a mocha, like an oat milk mocha is always like the safe bet though.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, so I don't drink coffee, and I try to memorize my wife's order, but I always have to ask her. It's something, maybe it's like a latte. That's about all I know. I don't really know coffee drinks, but yeah. Do you work sitting or standing? I see you're both sitting right now, but do you change it up? Do you have a standing desk?
You want to go first, Jordan?
I mean, yeah, I have the weirdest. So I am at like our kitchen bar, and I will sit or stand here because it's like counter height. It's like, it's like a bar height. But I have a standing desk, but I haven't been there in a while. I have like 8 a.m. meetings. Like I begrudgingly do them and sit here, and I just have so much inertia that I don't move until the workday is over. But
yeah,
when I'm at my desk, I mostly stand.
Cool.
Yeah, he actually stands. I'm very impressed. I sit a lot. I have one of those treadmill things under my desk. I try to use it. It's so hard. I just like sitting. And then also he chooses not to sit with me in this office. Look at where he could be every day, and he just chooses to not be here.
That's funny. Awesome. Do you have any hobbies you'd like to share with everyone?
I've been trying to do more non-screen hobbies. I think like a lot of mine involve that. I just got invited to do pickleball this weekend, so we're both gonna go. So I'm interested. I'm like excited. I don't know what that is. It looked like big ping pong, so I think it'll be super fun. Yeah, I don't know. It just sounds awesome. So that, and then like painting and things like that. Yeah, Jordan, do you have any hobbies?
I have a lot of screen hobbies, but probably just video games would be mine, like my go-to. I really like just sitting on the couch and watching Netflix. We just finished Beef, which was pretty crazy. But
I heard I should watch that. So
the last 2 episodes were amazing. I don't know, just hard to even talk about. Yeah, they're very good.
Yeah, it crescendos for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, a lightning round of tech preference questions. This will be interesting because you two live together, so I'm curious if you share opinions on all of this. First question, Tabs or spaces?
I'm tabs.
Yeah, I'm team tabs.
Cool. 2-space tab or 4-space tab?
The
Or
beauty
more.
of tabs is use whatever you want.
Sure.
I don't know
But
whatever it's on. I don't know.
I
Maybe
think
four.
I
I think
think
it's four.
I think is it 2 is default? I don't know what the editors
I
are.
actually used 3 for
I think
like
it's
months
3.
because True set mine to 3. It might actually still be 3 for all I know,
Okay.
but I got used to it. It's I like it. It's kind of the compromise. It seems wrong initially, but I'd recommend everyone try it.
I did
I,
as a joke when he left his computer. I like set some stuff in his VS Code differently, and I think I set his tabs to 3. Yeah.
I'm
So
yeah, I'm open to it because it's like sometimes 2 is not enough. Like there's not enough visual difference. So that's like the happy middle ground. Nice.
yeah.
Semicolons are not in your JavaScript or TypeScript.
I think it's random. I've been trying to write them more. For work, they have like ESLint stuff, so I have to do it or like it yells at me. So I
Okay.
think, yeah, semicolons, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pro semicolons. I have the opinion that ASI is a error correction mechanism, and so if you do not include semicolons, you are leaning on error correcting behavior, which means you wrote an error. So don't write
Yeah,
an error.
I agree. Windows, Mac, or Linux?
Mac, but Windows for
Mac.
gaming. Yeah.
We have a pile of behind True. There's under one of these things. There's actually a pile of I think like 5 MacBook Pros that is just sitting there. So yeah,
Nice. Awesome. And last one, do you use Android or iPhone?
I use iPhone.
yeah, iPhone.
iPhone? Nice. Awesome. Okay, so a quick message from our sponsor before we get into some questions. This interview is brought to you by React Summit, which is the biggest React conference worldwide. Like I mentioned, it's going to be happening in Amsterdam on June 2nd and remote on June 6th. But I'll be there hanging out. I'd love to see you there as well. True will be giving a talk there with Jordan, and there's tons of other people from the React community that will be there as well. So we definitely love to see you there in Amsterdam. So my first question for both of you. And I guess I kind of skipped over this, but your talk title is should you use React or should you learn React in 2023? So first question is how long have you been using React?
Yeah, so for me, React, I actually started it when I was an intern in college. So it was at Uber, and I think it was like 2016 was when I started. I don't know how many years back that is, but I actually wanted to be a mobile developer at first. But then they were like, here's a web project that you can do. So I had to learn React, and alongside React, I had to learn JavaScript or TypeScript. I don't remember what we used at the time. So it was like learning both at the same time. Ever since then, I've been using it more, and I really like it. I kind of lean towards it for any side project that I use because that's just what I'm super familiar with. And yeah, so I guess it's been like a couple years now, almost
Nice.
10 years. Oh gosh, no, like 8. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been running. Well, my first React job was at Airbnb, where we were doing a migration from Knockout and Backbone to React. But been working on it since then, and then been in web dev for pretty much my entire life. Grew up on writing CSS for like forum software, and yeah, it's crazy.
Awesome. Yeah. So I've been using React since 2016. I was actually using Angular JS before that, and then I got a job teaching web development, and they transitioned their curriculum to React. So like that was my first experience with React was learning it so that I could teach it basically.
That's
Yeah,
so
I think
interesting.
2016 is about when I learned it too. And yeah, I used Angular back in like 2013, and that one experience. I know it's very different now, so I'm really just talking about the old, Angular one.
Yeah,
But it was it's pretty wacky to think about how things used to, how we used to set up like Angular projects, and now what like modern web dev looks like. It's pretty dramatically different.
definitely. Have either of you tried out the new React docs?
Yes, I actually was looking at them when they were like the beta docs still, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah,
They were so well done. I like them a lot more than the older React docs. And I use them to kind of learn more function components like the hooks and all of that. So it was really good
right.
to have that reference. And I really like that. I think Dan did a lot of it, but whoever else worked on it, they did a really good job with the examples too,
Yeah,
showing cases where, for example, like use ref, when you would use that over use effect or something. I don't know. It was just very well done, and it was way more helpful to me just to see the examples alongside like the explanation. So
definitely.
kudos. Yeah, yeah.
No, I think it's a huge improvement on the old docs.
Oh yeah.
And they have a cool domain name, right?
Oh
React.dev.
yes, it's very cool.
Have you seen, and I don't know, I don't want to, I don't want to stir up any controversy, but have you seen the section on starting a new project in the new React docs? And
So I've
do you have any
heard about it.
opinions on it? Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard about it. I didn't look too in depth. I don't know if it's because they removed something. Was it something about Create React App or adding like Vercel or Next.js as like an option? What could you summarize real quick what it was?
Sure. So initially, the docs did recommend Create React App,
Mhm.
and then Theo opened up a GitHub issue to remove Create React App and instead recommend Vite. And then it started a huge debate and discussion. And where they ended up is Next.js is the kind of like the top recommendation. And then if you scroll down a little bit and you click this button, then and you scroll a little bit more, you'll find Vite mentioned down here.
Got it. Does it still say Create React App anywhere, or is
No,
it
there's not a single reference to Create React App in the entire docs.
interesting?
As
Okay.
far as I could tell. Oh, maybe. Let's see.
Yeah,
No,
I'll go
yeah,
really quick
yeah.
because Jordan probably has more opinions. But for me, I've used Create React App before. That's just what I was like when you start learning React way back when. That was like every tutorial was based off that. But I started using Vite when I started streaming on Twitch, so like about
Mm,
2 years ago, and it is so great. Like it has a little bit more of a learning curve because you do have to set things up yourself. So you have to install all these things that you use, like Tailwind, all this. Like,
yeah,
but it just makes it so nice because you don't have all these other dependencies and things kind of bogging you down. Like you don't have to remove things. It's just like kind of adding is what I feel like. So I
yeah.
really like it, but I'm really bad with like super opinionated takes. But yeah, I think Meet's a good recommendation. That's my take.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Jordan.
Yeah. I mean, so without, yeah, it's tricky. I think that the React team over indexes on a particular set of users of React, which are a lot of them, to be fair.
Right.
But I think that there are lots of perfectly legitimate cases for building client-side only applications. I build a lot of client-side only applications that would not benefit at all from using anything like Next or Remix. And in some cases, that adds a lot of complexity that is hard to get out, like hard to kind of get away from. And so I don't love the over optimization for like a particular pattern of React users,
Mm,
and wish that it would lean a little bit more into the like, there are perfectly valid use cases, and if you're in one of these use cases, use this. But I'm glad Create React App got out of there.
yeah.
I'm not the biggest fan of Create React App. I'm glad that there's great engineers working on maintaining that and building it out. I just never kind of liked the all-in-one type of solution, and injected Create React Apps also are kind of like a maintenance nightmare. That when I joined my current company, what I was primarily working on was kind of getting out of this like kind of broken Create React App ejected setup.
Mm,
And so I just never want to do that again. So
for sure. Yeah, and I see some people mentioning in the chat like if you choose Next.js first, what was this comment from uh the Teak mentions Next is complex but worth it. And you almost always want SSR better more than CSR even for SEO. I mean, I kind of disagree because I think like Jordan was mentioning, there are scenarios where you actually don't care about, or you maybe don't have to worry about SEO if you're building like a completely client rendered app. Maybe it's like an internal tool for an organization. You don't really need SEO for that kind of thing. And then search engines can still index all JavaScript websites. Maybe you don't have the best ranking compared to completely server rendered, but I mean, at least from what I've seen in trying to teach beginners React, like it does seem like a big jump to ask them to use Next.js as their first thing when they're first learning. So it's an
yeah,
interesting landscape, I think, if you're a beginner.
yeah, the piece there that I always feel like is really hard to explain to people is the nuance between code that runs on the server and code that runs on the client, because it's, with client-side rendered apps, especially from like an educational perspective, you can just, you're just like, great, there's an app, it's client-side rendered, there's all the JavaScript runs in your browser. The mental model there is pretty easy.
Yeah.
When you get to Next.js, like if you have like a use state initializer, and inside of that you access window, your server render blows up, and you have to now explain, okay, well, there's actually two execution contexts that your JavaScript can run in. In the server context, now it can't access the window and some global properties that in the other one you can. So you have to type guard against that. And it's not, it's useful stuff for people to eventually learn. But I think that there's definitely greater initial kind of like mental models to build with something that is server-side rendered versus something that is client-side rendered, where you can just kind of teach the fundamentals and then get into the, at scale, you're building apps and you want SEO and you want server-side rendering and there's performance and, a lot more things that you can kind of layer on. But yeah, I feel like client-side rendering, like from a mental modeling perspective, is much simpler.
For sure. So it's the title of your talk, but it's also a question. So my question to you is, should you learn React in 2023?
Yeah, I mean, definitely yes. I think there's a lot of talk about all these new frameworks that are coming out. And so people are like, what should we focus on first? There's things like, Astro, completely different. There's Svelte Kit, all of this, right? And so the answer to this question is yes. And then there's, we said it in a jokey way, but like terms and conditions may apply. So that's kind of like the generic answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything to add, Jordan, or just yes?
Yeah. I mean, the answer in the talk that's given is basically yes, but terms and conditions may apply because it is a little bit, it is contextual, and the answer is not necessarily go use React for everything. It's not don't go use React for everything. It's just the trying to explore the nuance and kind of in that question and in the answer. React is great, and I love using React for a lot of my projects. There's also lots of cases where React is a very poor choice, and so it's talking about kind of those situations and where it is a great choice and where it is a poor choice, and kind of the space between. Yeah, I mean, it tries to strike the balance. I think part of the nuance that we're trying to capture is like striking the balance between being an extremist and saying like everything should be React, but also still giving a lot of credit to these giving credit to other frameworks that exist, because there's a lot of great frameworks in the scene, and you shouldn't necessarily have to learn React. It's just one of the many good ones, and there's some cases where you don't want to learn or use React, and there's some cases where you really maybe should.
For sure. So as a beginner, do you have any recommendations on how to learn React? Is there should they watch video courses, or is there a good tutorial somewhere? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so for me, it depends on the person. For me, a lot of resources that work well for me are video based. So I like watching someone do something and then just replicating it. It just works really well for my brain. I am really bad at reading stuff and kind of understanding what people mean by written text. I don't know what goes on, but so there's a lot of videos. For me, when I was learning function components too, I used Kent Dodd's Epic React Dev, I think, where he explained about all the hooks and like the use cases where to use that. And it was really cool for me to go from the class components to function components, and like the brain switch on that was a little interesting. So that helped a lot. So yeah, I go for videos. For people, I recommend just like YouTube is a really good resource. There's so much stuff out there. I started even making small ones, but there's a lot of other people that do a lot of content. So that's the first spot that I would look for free kind of video resources. But apart from that, I think it's like just a Google away, it's not too bad. Yeah.
Definitely.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, definitely sub to Muture over on YouTube.
Oh, it's okay, but thank you. But
the only other thing that I would say is like React has been around for a while, and so the one tricky piece of React education and learning is that there's a lot of old resources.
Yeah.
And so just try to use some of the more modern resources. Like there are a lot of like great both free and paid resources that exist, and just check the date, because if you don't want to end up in somewhere where it's you're learning React and all of a sudden they pull out React create class, for example, which most people don't even remember. But there are a lot of tutorials out there that will talk about things like that, and it can be very confusing to a beginner, which is actually why I really like kind of these very, very thoughtful end-to-end courses, just because they can kind of make sure that they're consistent in their messaging from end to end. You can just check the date of one course as opposed to trying to piece things together, which, after you've learned, it's easier to know this is old React, this is new React. But when you're a beginner, you just see a tutorial and it's, you're creating classes, and all of a sudden you go find another course and it's, oh, classes are dead, use hooks, and now you have these two mental models when you really only needed to learn one. And it's just check the date.
For sure.
I'm gonna add one more thing here, if that's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, the jump from being kind of like a beginner in coding to more intermediate and like mid-level that I am now was really difficult. That was like a really hard jump to kind of get through, because beginner, you follow stuff and you just do it yourself. But kind of in the mid-level, you're given a problem and you have to solve it. And you have to figure out how to do that without actually being given the code snippet to do that. So that was a little complicated. And I think a lot of that is just trying things out, Googling as much as possible. I don't think people Google as much as they should. People always ask me, and I'm like, just Google this. It's like, it's right there. If you just Google this question that you asked me in stream, it shows up in like the first response, right? So I think just like trying your best to figure stuff out and then finding people that you can ask. And so I got really lucky. I met Jordan, and that helped me kind of learn, because he's a really good mentor in that way. And I know a lot of people don't have someone like that living with them, but finding communities that can help you in that way would be super great. So like Discord communities or Twitter communities, and just talking to people.
For sure.
For help. Yep.
So we'll jump into some questions now from the chat, if that's cool. And before that, I'll give a quick shout out again to React Summit. So this interview and Q&A is brought to you by React Summit. If you visit cdg.sh/React Summit, they'll know that I sent you. This is happening in Amsterdam on June 2nd. It'll be hybrid, and then June 6th will be fully remote. But there's a ton of people from the React and TypeScript community that will be there. True and Jordan will be there. I'll also be there, and we'd love to see you at React Summit as well. So the first question comes from BTRSL, and they ask, is TypeScript a must for React development in 2023?
You go first, Jordan.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it's a must. I would highly recommend it. I think, there's a lot of benefits that you get from TypeScript. I actually really like TypeScript for the educational benefits. Generally, you don't have to quite think as much about what all of the APIs are available to you. Like, it's kind of like pulling documentation into code in a way,
right?
Especially for projects that have like really good JS docs and explain how methods are used and use deprecation correctly. It can really improve your productivity, especially if you're like very unfamiliar to the space. Plus, it's an indicator that you are, maybe writing code that might not be working, and maybe we'll be able to point you to why that's happening. Which I think is really useful for beginners. I do think that there is some additional things that you have to learn. I think to me the most effective TypeScript that your average app dev writes is actually TypeScript that doesn't really have any types. Like the more visible the types are, the more that I the less I like it. I'm a big believer in, like, it's in the app space. In libraries, I think it's a little bit different, but in the app space, like really leaning into inference and kind of letting TypeScript do its thing most of the time. There's obviously exceptions, but especially for a beginner, I feel like you could just rename your files to .ts and do a little bit of learning about the CLI and getting that set up. And generally speaking, you'll just get useful error messages that shouldn't get too much in your way. And there's always a way to bail out of it. So I wouldn't say it's a must, but I think it is more useful than it is challenged to set up. So I'd highly recommend it.
Yeah, 100% with what Jordan said. I also think like in VS Code, it also completes for you. Like when you have like an object or something, you get the properties really easily. And for me, like working in a big monorepo like Discord, being able to see the types of certain things is super helpful. So I recommend TypeScript. I think it's not super difficult. I'm also not great at writing TypeScript, like the crazy library TypeScript that people write.
Yeah,
I don't ever do that. I just need the basic level of understanding, and I think it works. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think so. Like from what I've seen in some of the more recent technical content on like YouTube and Twitter and stuff like that, people can get really I don't know the right word, like really in depth with TypeScript, like just focus, like learning all of like the meta aspects of creating types and generics and everything else. But for just plain old React development, you really just need to know like interfaces and then maybe how to specify a generic for the most part. Like everything else is kind of just done for you. So I know people can get overwhelmed if they see all that TypeScript and think that they need to learn all of TypeScript. You really don't to be productive.
Yeah, 100%.
Cool. Let's see. Yeah, Timon has a question that came from Moshiko. What courses would you recommend on Udemy or any other platforms? Do you have any that you'd recommend?
I don't think I've used Udemy in a really long time. I think the
Okay.
last time I used it was in college, so I don't think I have anything specific.
Yeah, and you did mention Epic React.dev. I think this is
Yes,
by
that's it.
Kent C. Dodds. And I guess are there other instructors that are giving lessons in this too, or?
Oh my gosh.
'Cause I remember.
There's
Okay, I
no,
saw.
go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I saw this section, which is like interview with experts, but I guess they're not lessons. They're more so just like hearing from industry experts about React.
Yeah, I know Josh Como does really cool like CSS and then like JS for CSS things. His courses look insane. He's built like a whole interactive thing to actually write it in his browser. I don't know. Very,
Yeah.
very insane. Very cool. Yeah, the joy of React. This looks amazing. Dan a long time ago did a thing where he talked about JavaScript. I think that helped my brain kind of understand references and stuff like that in JavaScript. It was very good. I think learning like the underlying language before you learn the framework is very important too. So I highly recommend also like learning JavaScript edits. Yeah, this one was very, very well done. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Like you have to have the basics of JavaScript down to be productive in React. Because I mean, I've seen some beginners that try to just dive immediately into React, and there's just so much missing underlying knowledge that you kind of need to be productive.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, I'll link all these in the chat. So just JavaScript is the one that was from Dan Abramov, and this is literally just about JavaScript. It's not actually about React. And Dan Abramov is on the React core team. He's also the creator of Redux. But he partnered with who was the Maggie Appleton, and there's a ton of really cool diagrams because Maggie's an illustrator. So yeah, it's a really good breakdown of like how JS works. And then yeah, I was looking at the Joy of React the other day. It's not available right now, but I think it's going to be available soon. But that's the one from Josh Kemo or Kemo.
Yes. Yeah, I'm not too sure how to pronounce his last name, but yes.
Yeah. And then Epic React is the one that was mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think all of those are paid, but unfortunately I can't think of any free ones right now, but those are, yeah. Really good.
Let's see. Arpat says, will React increase in popularity?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jordan? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yes. I think everything is increasing in popularity because there's more and more devs, right? So the amount of like the space is getting bigger, and so as the space gets bigger, it will get bigger with the space. I don't know if it will increase in popularity as a percentage of like package downloads or something like that, which is what some people use to like get an idea of like the popularity as like just all installs grow. And I think that if it doesn't, that's also okay. I actually think that more diversity in the space would be really good. And I think that like ideally having more viable solutions that people can reach for is like a good thing, not a bad thing. But yeah, I think I also think that it will, it'll continue to kind of be, it's incredibly popular today. I think it will continue to be incredibly popular. And I think I just don't know in like absolute percentage terms, but yes.
Yeah, I guess it actually took a while for React to become popular. Like in the early days, most people were like, "This is crazy. It's rendering too much. You're rebuilding the whole UI on every update. That's crazy." But it picked up in popularity, and then I think now the ecosystem is something that you can't deny. Like there's a package for everything you might want to do with React. So it has that going for it as well.
Yeah, as part of the talk, I was like trying to come up with because that's a point that we actually make is like one of the benefits of learning something like React is anything you need to do, someone has already written a package for it. If it's up to date, that's kind of another question. Is it well maintained? Are there TypeScript types? Probably, but yeah, it is crazy. I was just going through like 5 or 6 of my side projects and going through the dependencies to try to remember what some of them are, and I'm like, oh yeah, like there is just a crazy amount of dependencies that are just one install away, and you could entire pieces of functionality or minute tiny things. It is really the power of the ecosystem is really hard to deny.
Definitely. So someone in the Twitch chat did mention the Odin project for learning React. Do they have a React section? I guess there's also a Learn React on Free Code Camp. We didn't mention that either.
Yeah, Free Code Camp, Scrimba, I think it's paid though. There's Scrimba. What else have I used? I've used Free Code Camp. I don't know what else there. Cool. It's so weird because I'm trying to come up with videos to tell people how to learn React or learn how to code. And I was like, I don't even know how I did. It felt like fever dream, kind of. Like, I don't know how I got to where I am, but yeah, it's difficult.
And Trash Dev with the raid. Welcome in, Raiders. Appreciate you all. We are interviewing Mewtrue and Vape Juice Jordan here about their talk at React Summit, which is Should You Learn React in 2023? So we're basically just chatting about that. If you have any questions in the chat, you can do !ask, and followed by your question, it'll pop up here, and we're going to do our best to answer it. I'm going to ask both you, True and Jordan, do I have your permission to plug my own course?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, I'm gonna do it. So over the last 2 weeks, I've been teaching a course called React Roots. By the end of this week, all of the live streams that I did and all of the content and everything is gonna be available for sale as well. So that's a shameless plug of if you want to learn React from me.
That's awesome. The courses are so hard to make, so kudos.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate taking attention away from everyone else, but thank you for letting me plug that real quick.
Yeah, of course.
Let's see what else we got. Yeah, Default GN asks, is a hot dog a sandwich?
Oh my God, wait, I feel like we did this on stream. Is it a sandwich? I think it is, because it's like the bread is on either side of the middle ingredients. Sometimes it's connected to, though, but sometimes it's not. Yes, I would say, yeah, it's a sandwich. Jordan? How about you, Jordan?
Yeah, a hot dog is a variant of a sub sandwich.
Okay, there you go.
And that's what I was gonna say, because like if you think about if your definition of a hot dog is like bread that's connected, you can think of like a sub sandwich, right, or like a hoagie. There's a fold in it. Like how different is it a hot dog from that? So yeah, I think it's a form of a sandwich too. So
yeah, I mean, I think the logical extension there is burritos are sandwiches too.
Yeah.
What? What? That's too far. That's
or
too far.
I mean, you could also ask the question: is a hot dog a taco?
Also, yes.
Oh gosh, yeah. See, this is too much.
But a burrito, I'd argue a burrito is also a taco, though.
Yeah. Okay.
How is it a taco? It's fully folded on itself.
I mean, so if I take a taco and then I just fold the ends into itself, now it's a burrito.
Like a taquito. I don't know. Okay.
Awesome. So for our raiders, I think some people do have the question: is React.js worth learning in 2023? I think we answered it earlier, but if we want to reiterate for the people that just came in.
No, yeah, it is worth learning. Sorry. Yeah, it's worth learning. We just had there's a lot of nuance in it, but I think most of the time it's a really good starting framework to learn. And then in terms of using it too, there's times where it's not great, and then it's just you have to do some research. Like at smaller scales for side projects and things that aren't even going to be shipped anyways, it doesn't really matter. But if you're a big company and you're trying to figure out what you're going to use, there's some ways that you can figure that out, and that's kind of what we talk about in our talk.
Definitely. So we only have a few minutes left in terms of the time that we booked. Do you all have maybe 15 more minutes to stick around and finish out the questions, or do you have to go?
I could do another 10, but
okay, cool.
Jordan.
Yeah, I can as well.
Let's do 10 then. So Natik is asking the question, what's your opinion on pre-rendering? So this has to do with,
you mentioned this, right?
Yeah, like static site generation, or I guess static site generation would be pre-rendering.
Yeah, I mean, I think pre-rendering is a pretty good solution. I think, I mean, it really depends on, there's a lot of variants of it, right? There's it's being supported in the frameworks, like Next has, server-side generation or your static generation. And then there's pre-render IO, which will just take your site and render it and things like that. So I think it depends on, to me, if you're reaching more for a solution where you have a client-side rendered app and you run something in front of it that will basically render it, cache the HTML result, and serve the HTML result for SEO, it's okay. I don't love it, and generally I tend to prefer more native server-side rendered solutions in that case. But I think for the case where you have static, more where it's static output of a server-side rendered, something like Next.js, right? I like solutions like that a lot. But I mean, use whatever works at the end of the day. I think that they're I think they're all perfectly valid solutions in some cases, and rewriting your app from client-side rendered to server-side rendered that's a really big undertaking, and sometimes just shoving a process in front of that can do that for you is a lot easier, and will get the job done just as well.
Definitely. And I think like if like you were mentioning, if it's certain types of website just make sense for this. Like if it's based on data or content that doesn't change that often, then yeah, you can pre-render it. But if it changes frequently, then you probably need some kind of client-side JavaScript or some kind of server-side rendering to keep it updated. But yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
there's also cases where that I've run into where like you have something that's so personalized that like even the shell of your application is kind of hard to keep static. And in extreme cases like that, so I say screw it and I just use client-side rendering for everything.
yeah. This question comes from America 2050. Do you really like JSX or just use it because of React? If you do like JSX, what parts of it do you, and what would you like to be different?
Oh man. So it's so weird. I don't really know anything apart from JSX. Like I've used other frameworks that are like different how you approach JavaScript and HTML, but uh I don't find it that hard. I think in the beginning when I was learning it, one of the things that you had to keep in mind, you can't do like a for loop in the brackets or something like that, right? You have to use like a map, etc. But apart from that, I don't think it's super complicated. I don't know, Jordan, do you have more like nuance here? Because I feel like
I mean, my nuanced take is boring. So I guess my
yeah.
hot take here is uh, JSX works, and there's some ways that it's really neat, like the fact that it returns object descriptions versus like concrete instantiations
Mm.
of like components, which is really it's where like a lot of optimization opportunity and things, the whole reason things like suspense and concurrent can work. That said, I much prefer template languages
Interesting.
because template languages you can impose constraints that are much more compiler friendly.
Interesting.
And take something like Svelte, right, where the like all of the compiler level optimization friendly things that are just expressed in it's just baked into the template syntax. Like you can't really write something that is awfully. I mean, you can write poorly performing things, but you have to kind of go out of your way just because there's only you have to express yourself only in the constraints of the template language. And I think having arbitrary JavaScript expressions that can be included in JSX, while it is very useful, it also is often a case where it's a much harder optimization problem to solve. Um, but yeah, that's the hot take, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of agree. So I think if you look at larger code bases and larger components, JSX can get really weird looking at a certain point. Like all of the curly braces and parentheses, and then like you typically pair that with ternaries, which are terse by design. So like in my experience, like it can get really ugly compared to like how you might express the same thing in like the Svelte template syntax or in the Vue template syntax. But um, it is interesting that it is at the end of the day, because it just supports anytime there's curly braces, you can have expressions, and like that simple idea makes it you can basically express anything JavaScript in that way is pretty interesting. But yeah,
Yeah, it's a very powerful idea, and I think it's part of why like React is actually in some ways like easy to learn because you don't have to think about like you just know, oh, I'm gonna curly, so like any valid JavaScript expression is gonna work here. But yeah, I mean, I've also like half of the performance problems that I've seen in apps are not actually performance problems related to uh the application. It's really often silly things around just like these functions run a lot. I mean, this is not really a JSX thing, it's more a React thing, but we'll couple the two for a second. It's just like you can't this function runs all the time and all of these expressions are going to re-evaluate, and none of these are like lazily evaluated, and it's not strictly expressed in a template syntax. So like your conditional branching is not really you can't really optimize out like conditional branches the way that you could with like an optimizing compiler. So it's just like I don't know. It's what I like it and I hate it at the same time.
yeah. So yeah, we're running short on time. I just posted the link in the chat. It's vox.coding.garden. Do you want to do a quick scroll there and maybe pick one or two questions to answer in your last few minutes? And while you're doing that, I'll give a quick plug of React Summit. So this interview is brought to you by React Summit. It's going to be happening in Amsterdam. It is the biggest React conference worldwide. It'll be in Amsterdam on June 2nd and remote on June 6th. If you visit cdg.sh/React Summit, they'll know that I sent you. But I'll be there hanging out. I'd love to see you there as well. And True and Jordan are going to be there giving this talk titled Should You Learn React in 2023?
Cool. I'm going to zoom through a couple of these.
Go for it.
Okay, so how do you feel about Bootstrap with React? There's a lot of other things that you can use instead of Bootstrap. I really like Tailwind, but there's also a lot of like UI component libraries that you can also use. So there's a lot of options.
Okay.
So do your research. How can a fresher or junior friend keep AI in mind when you're learning? I wouldn't rely on answers that the AI gives you. Half the time Copilot is wrong as well. And it was hard for me to learn GraphQL with using Copilot. So I recommend like using it to help you and kind of figure out what else you could do, but don't rely on the answers solely. Cool. I recommend Vite over Create React App, but that's just because that's what I've been using more and I like it. So that's just a very generic answer. You should not be forced to use Next in a job. Discord does not use Next.js, so I did not have to have any of that knowledge when I worked at Discord. What else? Do you want to take some, Jordan?
You're flying through these. It's awesome.
Thank you. Go quickly.
Man. All right. Any hot takes considering Next.js? Yeah, just merge it with the React repo, move it into the Vercel org with that, and call it a day. Let's stop the pretending, right? To answer the prediction, who has the most experience in React?
It's definitely one of these two, not me. Not me.
My first ever React project, I think, was in 20. It would have been 2014. Was the first time I ever wrote React.
It's Jordan then, because I was 2016.
Jordan,
yeah. You win.
Okay, one more thing. I saw some monorepo or split projects. Discord is a big monorepo. I think if you have tooling around having a really big monorepo, then it's great. Apart from that, it gets really slow sometimes. TypeScript takes a really long time to run. Running my mobile apps takes a really long time to run. So it really depends, but it's really nice to have one place we can run all the type compilations and get them all into different projects really quickly. But yeah, that's my hot take. But yeah, Jordan's also worked in monorepos.
Yeah, I think monorepos are. I'm a big believer in the per project monorepo, not a company monorepo. I like per project monorepos. I hate company monorepos, but and then maybe one that I'll answer now is the context API enough? Yes and no. I think the context API. I think that you should introduce state management solutions like the latest possible that you can. I for like non-API state, like often for login state, there's better solutions. For API state, you should probably use a library that manages that. And then there's very little state that's kind of like actually global. And then prop drill some of your like local state. It's not that bad. There's another question about like what's the biggest performance issues that you've seen, and honestly state management is probably the biggest one, because the amount of times I've come into it's mostly Redux, but like poorly optimized Redux applications, and then just seen it creep to a halt because of granted misunderstandings of state management. Just avoid it until you can't, and then the more optimized solutions that targeted solutions that you use, things like React Query, or if you're in the GraphQL space, look into Relay, which is like incredibly optimized for GraphQL. But you tend to run into performance problems a lot later if you make less. Don't immediately just reach for like a holistic state management solution. But that's, I don't know. I just hate Redux, so that's just me.
I've seen some, pretty much most code bases that have Redux in them are just very, I don't want to generalize, but it gets messy easily. There's a lot of boilerplate. And then also just like deeply nested state updates, I think, are where some of those performance issues come into play if you're not using a tool like Imer or Immutable.js or something like that.
Is it pronounced Imer?
I don't know. I'm not good at pronunciation. Is it
okay.
Immer?
No, I don't know. I believe either.
It's German. I don't know if there's any Germans in the chat. Oh, that's actually super interesting because Zustand is also a German word. I didn't think about that. Zustand.
Is that how you pronounce that?
I don't know. I might just be really bad at pronunciation. Is it Zustand? I don't know why I'm putting an accent on it. Zustand? Stand. I think it's definitely German. I don't know.
Jordan is definitely German, so
that's, okay.
But he doesn't.
I'm like German in the same way that like I'm not like in the same way that like a lot of people are like Irish. I'm not really German.
We've said Zustand, but that's probably completely off now that I've heard your
people in the chat are saying Zustand. I think that's a good American way to say it, Zustand.
Okay, Zeus. Oh God, I've said this wrong so many times. Okay, very cool. Very cool.
Awesome. All right, I think we'll end it there.
Gotta update our talk then. Yeah, I think we have we say Immer and Zustand a lot. So
Cool. So I'll hand it over to you all. Do you have anything you want to shout out or anything you want to let people know before we get out of here?
No, I mean, this was really fun to talk to you. I had a really good time. Yeah, definitely check out Coding Garden's course. I think that'll be super fun. I'm gonna look at it too. I love looking at courses like that. And I definitely, you teach very clearly and very well, and you go into depth on things. So I'm excited to see what else. Yeah, I post on like YouTube and TikTok and Instagram, but it's not like crazy important. Jordan doesn't really make any content, but if he wants to shout something out, do you want to shout out some work stuff or?
no.
Yeah.
Just go. Go follow True. Go follow Coding Garden. Just ignore me. I don't really exist.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks again, both of you, for being here. This was great. Had a great time. And one last shout out to JS Nation. Visit not JS Nation, React Summit. Visit cdg.sh/React Summit to learn more. It's going to be happening in Amsterdam. And also check out JS Nation. It's actually happening the day before. If you go to cdg.sh/JS Nation, you can learn more. And tune in tomorrow. So tomorrow, Wes Boss is going to be on the stream. And we're going to be chatting about his talk at JS Nation, which is AI and web dev, hype or reality. So that'll be a good time. Again, thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you for all of your questions, and have a wonderful rest of the day, and hope to see you tomorrow.